Welcome to a new episode of Full Spinnaker Ahead. In this episode we look at a maintenance solution to an oil flooded anchor winch motor and also take time out to cruise the beautiful Tambo River. Yeah, g'day, we've got another maintenance issue with the anchor winch. It's not that long ago that I changed the anchor winch motor because it was old, and I ended up getting like a cupped handful of rust out of the internals of it. So I changed it with a brand spanking new one. It worked perfectly, but I went to use the anchor winch when I was going to go out for a sail out of the river that I'm in. And I went to use the winch, and it sounded like the contacts weren't making properly. So I tightened up a few of the terminals. It was still doing the same thing. So I pulled it apart, and when I split the anchor winch motor, a heap of gear oil plopped out. Like, when I say a heap, it was probably 400 mil. So it totally submerged the bottom of the motor. It's sort of hard to visualize, I suppose, but I will show you later on. But and so now what I'm doing, so what happened there was that it was shorting out, and when I did end up cleaning the internals of the motor out, electrical motor, the commutator and the brushes, you could see the pitting on the commutator, brand new commutator. Yeah, so basically what happened, the gearbox oil seal was faulty, so when it seeped into the housing where the motor engages into the worm drive, it just filled up, and because the bearing on front of the new motor wasn't sealed, it just seeped through the inner and outer race and filled the motor up. I think the old starter motor was a sealed bearing, so it didn't pass through that passage, and it just filled up that section, probably providing a good bit of lubrication for the drive. It was just a roll pin drive. Yeah, so I think what I'm going to have to do is replace that seal, obviously. So I've got to take the gearbox out, which is in there. Take the gearbox out, change the seal or seals, or do anything else that's in there while I'm there. Make a filling site on that gearbox because it's too hard to get at where it is. And also somewhere I can check the level easily without having to bend down and crook around and look at the sight glass. And drill a hole in that coupling where the electrical motor goes onto the worm drive, so that in the event of a leak, it'll seep out the bottom. And I could even just put a little container under the bottom permanently just to check that for leaks. So yeah, got a bit of work to do. Tomorrow is a couple of days before Christmas, so I'm hoping that I can get the seal and measure it up. Might have something locally and or get onto Vitus Maxwell. Luxford's is the agent in Victoria, or this end of Victoria, I think, and see whether they've got one of those seals, and I can get it here before in the next, maybe by midweek, so that'll be Christmas. Yeah, so here we go. I just wanted to explain the scenario where when I put the new starter motor on, the gearbox, how it flooded the starter motor with gearbox oil. So this is the gearbox for the winch. It has a level of fluid in it. It connects, it's got a worm drive in the bottom that the starter motor connects to. There's a seal in here, and it must have just been weeping a little bit. When I fitted the starter motor, it was fine until a month or so later. I went to use it in the Tambo River and it wouldn't go. So when I pulled it apart, I found that the level of oil had now gone into the starter motor and flooded the bottom of the starter motor. So the oil had weeped out of this seal through the worm drive and through the front of the starter motor. The old new starter motor obviously didn't have a seal in it, whereas the old one must have had a seal in it because I never had that problem. So what I've done, I ended up taking all the seals out of the gearbox and replacing them so they're new seals, so it shouldn't leak that way anyway. But so if it does, I'm just going to drill a hole in here and put a cup underneath it, so that if I see any oil in that cup, I know that that seal has stopped working properly, and I can monitor the amount it leaks by how much is in this cup. Yeah, that's what happened, and I hope that makes it a little bit clearer.
So before we get into the ins and outs of the maintenance footage, let's have a look at what's going on in the Tambo.
Is that alright?
Cool.
Morning, Monday morning. The morning of a heat wave apparently. We're on the Tambo River, parked with the back of the boat into the river. Anchor out the front. I just woke up this morning and I noticed all this green stuff. This green stuff coming down the river, and these lakes are notorious for blue-green algae. Just looking at this stuff, it looks like it's moving. Bit like a paint slick, but normally it starts to smell. But yeah, so maybe we're getting blue-green algae again, which is always a shit thing because you don't know where to swim, and it's just no good. It's disgusting actually. It's a real shame. Anyway, I'm just going to go for a walk down the Tambo Bay. Beautiful sandy beach bay, shallow bay.
A sweltering hot day on the Tambo River in Gippsland Lakes. That's our boat, parked up in the back there. 2 bow lines and an anchor line at the front with the bridle on. Snooper just went for a swim because she's been panting all day, very she's been very hot. Me too. So we just dropped the tinny for the first time, and we're going to go down for a cruise down the bottom. Just do a few laps here first to make sure this is working. I'm always worried when I put the tinny down for the first time because I don't flush it much, which I probably should start doing. Just because that impeller doesn't get washed off, and then when you first start it off, you could put a lot of pressure on it because it wants to stick. So I probably should start washing that. Righto. Hopefully I'll learn from theory and not practice. This is the Tambo River domesticated goose. I gave him a couple of bypasses just to keep him on his toes. And in regard to the blue-green algae, I'd rung up the department about it, and they do tests on the lake for blue-green algae, and they hadn't detected it anywhere, not even in the Tambo River. So I might have just not been blue-green algae, or just a flush out or something like that, but it was good because we had a really good prawn season, and we didn't have to worry about any toxins in the shellfish or the prawns. Tambo stays like this, quite wide, goes through this sort of hill country where it's really eroded like into a bit of a gorge sort of setup, and it gets quite shallow further up, unnavigable even by tinny in some places, up towards Bruthen. But it's always nice to get up there and get a bit of fresh water and have a bit of a swim, and it's always nice and calm. So the hope is that when I'm going to take the winch apart from the top, because to get into here and get the gearbox out, it's very cramped, and you just need a go-go gadget arm to get in there. So it's at this point that I realised my hopes of doing all the work on the gearbox from the top has sort of like faded. The inner cone is seized on the shaft, so that has to be taken off with a puller, which I did over 3 days with a puller set up on it, and also decided that shaft has to go down through the bottom of the anchor well. bit by bit, little by little. Very difficult to get at. 4 bolts. It's going to take a while, and then that'll drop down there. I don't even know if I can get them all, but I'm assuming if they have taken them out, they should be able to. I mean, if they've put it in, it should be able to be taken out, so I'm confident. The anchor gypsy, anchor winch. I've finally got the inner cone off, which is a brass inner cone that matches the outer cone, and that's what creates the friction on my windlass. So that's the bit on the bottom. That there is the inner. It's got two little clips that it sits down on. There should be 2 anyway. Wow, I've already lost it. That's no good. That's pretty important. Shit. Anyway, that's the inner. That was seized on, and I got it off with a puller. This puller over here. That puller, and got that off over about 3 days, just letting it sit there and heat up, and with a heat gun and a bit of WD-40. So now my next job is this. Down in there, I've dropped the gearbox down. Now I've got to get that bucket out and pull it all out on deck.
Carpet Country Sale.
Hi, it's Jeff calling from New Zealand.
Oh, hi Jeff.
You having a sale?
No. Sale is where one of our 2 big showrooms is based.
Yeah, no, I knew that.
Although, with our prodigious
That's the
range, our prices are very
coupling there.
So I guess it's like
The starter motor goes on there,
Hey, have you ever
and it
seen a
filled,
woolly
that
mammoth?
seal
Want more floor? Carpet
is
Country
weeping slightly.
and Terralgan.
So it eventually fills this cavity,
Chemist Warehouse Gippsland is here to support you with 4 great locations.
and it can't run anywhere because there's no hole in the bottom.
Your local Chemist Warehouse is always here for you.
So it fills up that cavity, and because the new starter motor doesn't have a sealed bearing on the front, it just went inside the starter motor and filled it up with oil. And then when I went to use the it's not a starter motor, it's a winch motor, same style thing, but and it was shorting out across the because the commutators are submerged, which is basically the electrical contacts between the windings and the brushes, and it just basically turned over its snail pace, which indicated me there was something wrong. A bit of damage has been done with pitting of the commutators, brand new, but we should be right. If we change this seal so it doesn't leak, I'm going to drill a hole in the bottom so that drips out there if it does leak, and then I'll just hold a little container on the bottom there all the time. And if it just keeps leaking, I'll probably have to seal it again and put a sealed bearing in the front, because maybe it's been designed like that so that it lubricates the coupling as well, which is just a roll pin going through there. But I'm going to change that seal. I went to Bairnsdale Bearings and I got seals, and I got the seals here. It looks like it's the right one. And the 2 on here, I thought while I'm there I'll just change them, because they're probably very, very old. And also what I'm going to do is, because that's the sight glass to check how much oil is in there, I'll just turn the radio off.
Also gone. Several people are expected to be charged on.
Just change these seals as well. Sight glass shows you the level of oil, but I don't know how you're meant to fill it up. They say through the sight glass, but if you can do it on the side like that and then put it upright, but you can't do it in situ. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in there with a hose on it, and then that hose will act as a filler and a sight glass, so that the hose will sit up like that, and the oil will come up to the level of that, and then that will tell me how full it is, so I can always check it easily, because this is in quite a precarious position. Wouldn't call it precarious, it's just tight, really tight actually. So that's where we're up to. So hopefully today I can get all this underway and maybe fill the oil up tomorrow, because these have got to have a bit of sealant put on them. I've just cut that off so that when it screws in, it doesn't even entertain the idea of conflicting with the worm drive. A bit of Loctite on there and seat it right down onto that rubber. There's a rubber seal, because this is the fitting that went in there. I'm just going to put that in, but it seals against that rubber there. So I think if I turn that in, it'll do partially sealed, plus a bit of Loctite. It should do the job just nicely. And then a bit of gear oil that goes in. And then maybe after the first year, instead of 3 years, I'll just change it after the first year or season to try and get that oil back. I'm not going to pull all this apart because it's all working all right. It's a pretty basic mechanism in there, so I'll just sort of keep running it and see how we go. But the idea of measuring these up myself and finding them myself, they cost, we'll say $20 each. I'm going to get a price off Vitus Maxwell and see off the parts list and see what they charge me, because I'm just on this bandwagon at the moment about companies just charging heaps of money for, well, there's a reason for it, because they just want to maximize their returns. But as a consumer, we're getting done over, and we've got to go back to measuring things ourselves. And because they're available on the shelf, it's just that if you don't know the knowledge, or you can't be bothered learning it, or don't want to be done with it, and you pay the extra money. But when you don't have that coin, that's not what I want to do. And I think that through the marketing and everything of most things, that they are trying to get you to think like that where you just let someone else do that. And I think it's sort of taken a bit of a swing now, and it's got to go back to do a bit more DIY, or DIY, is it? Do it yourself. DIY, do it. Oh yeah, DIY. Smart, aren't I? Righto, see ya. Just gonna change to head cam, but I don't know whether it's working or not. I can't see where it's gonna go. So I'm just gonna, I've got a new seal, so I'm just gonna give this a little tap. See if I can't get this out without too much ado. I think by the feel of that, I'm going to have to go a little pointed device like this, something like that. There we go, see? There was method in that madness. So now I got that seal out and I got a replacement. I can just put that seal back in. So we'll just, you can see there's a bearing there and a circlip. Trying to find something that fits this seal. Here I just used a piece of fiberglass batten material to tap the seal in. It's been a big day on the maintenance of the anchor winch. We've got it, all the seals changed, and we've made the initial installation, as I'll show you here. And then we just got all those to put on. All the bolts, I just wanted to mention this. It's similar to the aircraft industry. All the bolts get put this stuff on them. It's called Duralac. Duralac. Duralac is a dissimilar metal paste to separate dissimilar metals, in this case stainless steel and aluminium, to reduce corrosion. We're just assembling the two half round clips where the inner cone sits down on, and also the keyway which locates the inner cone. In this next section we're just assembling the spring-loaded nylon buttons into the top of the inner cone, which hold a little bit of pressure on the outer cone. The outer cone goes on and we're finished. Finitoed. Music to my ears, the rattle of the anchor chain going up healthily. Thanks for watching. That's the end of this episode. Hope to see you next time. Please subscribe, hit the like button if you liked it, and leave a comment.